Happy Halloween, freaks and friends, and welcome to day 31 of the Dirty One Days of October. Can you believe we are already done? But the daily content wraps up today with what is probably the perfect way to cap off a Halloween-themed month of content. It's probably the most basic idea too, but damn it if it's not fitting. We're going to be ranking the franchise one more time. Make sure to stab that subscribe button and slash that bell icon so you don't miss out on this daily Halloween content all through the month of October. Now, those of you who have been around the channel long enough know that I have gone through the Halloween franchise before, that I have ranked it more than once. Of course, the first time that I went through the series for the Halloween Wednesday series, and then when I did the Beyond Myers video last year. But you all know that whenever you revisit a franchise, some of your thoughts and feelings change towards some films. You might feel better about one film than you did before. You might feel lesser toward another. And there might be one that really just surprises the hell out of you. That was kind of one of the things that I had taken away from this Dirty One Days of October Volume 2. Again, with the whole thing being really revisiting of the Halloween franchise and giving two of the films proper reviews finally. Well, before I get into the 45th anniversary rankings, I'm just going to put on screen here real quick what my rankings were last year with the Beyond Myers video, which you guys should still check out because that one's pretty cool, I think. But this was the ranking last year. Just let that soak in real quick. Know that some of these might have moved around. Are they going to be the same? Let's find out. Anchoring in the series and coming in the 13th spot is going to be, you guessed it, Halloween Resurrection. This is a film that, while I had a lot of fun the last couple times I've watched it, I am going to stop saying that I hate it, because getting in touch with the anniversary theme of this Halloween review series, you're starting to realize that, hey, I don't really hate anything going on here. There's just things that annoy me or pester me here or whatever. But this one is one that, again, I have a lot of childhood nostalgia for. And I think hate is much too dark of a word for it. It's just the Halloween film I enjoy the least. Again, it has some things where it feels like it's trying to jump on the found footage fad. Getting reality TV is sort of a little aspect of the plot. Busta Rhymes telling Michael what to do, whooping Michael's ass, which he didn't do that bad. Like, I don't know, I feel like we all remember it as, oh, he just overpowered Michael. Not necessarily. After Michael gets tired of mourning through the night. That kind of makes a little sense. But Halloween Resurrection, it's probably the one I'm least likely to revisit. One of the ones, anyway, that I'm least likely to revisit just for shits and giggles. Coming in at number 12, this is probably the one that I have the most confliction with. It's going to be Halloween H2O. I know there's a lot of fans out there for it. There are things I do like about this film. It is pretty good as a little thriller. It is pretty good in its timeline. If you remove Resurrection, like, this definitely makes a strong piece of the 1, 2, and H2O timeline. I like the way this film is bookended, as I've said before. The opening and the ending are both like icing on the cake for this film. I like things about it, but at the end of the day, it's just one I find myself liking less and less every time I watch it. I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years from now it ends up at 13. But hey, we'll see what happens when we get there, right, guys? But Halloween H2O, I just don't have a whole lot to say about it right now. So it's just going to be here at number 12. So from this point going forward, I have less gripes with these films. But coming in at number 11, we're looking at Rob Zombie's Halloween. This is one that I think is pretty damn solid as a slasher. It's pretty serviceable as a Halloween film from about the second half all the way to the end. If we're talking the theatrical cut, this is a pretty damn solid remake. If we're looking at the director's cut, it's a bit problematic. You guys have already heard me express that. The escape scene, get the fuck out of here with that. Escape, get the fuck out. Anyway, there's things about Rob Zombie's Halloween that just feel like it could have been a lot better if it was just handled as sort of its own little project, with the backstory, which I thought was pretty okay this time around. It's just something that I feel... It doesn't feel like a Halloween film with every fiber of its being. If you just sort of changed it to some generic insert slasher gimmick here, it could have been pretty goddamn solid, and probably could have been higher on this list, but if that was the case, it wouldn't be on this list. Anyway, moving on. Coming in at number 10, this is one that I feel has climbed just a little bit from where I had it previously. That's going to be Halloween 5, and I feel like this one might have potential to climb a little bit in the coming years, but time will tell on that. But on this last watch, I felt like there was something more to appreciate there. Sure, it's a little bit of a mess of a film, but it has this foreign charm to it. And if you separate it in your mind as not a Halloween film, but again, something like an Edge of the Axe kind of film, which you guys know I didn't really care for that one. But if you look at it as something sort of its own, it almost feels a little bit more intriguing. And even as a Halloween film, it's pretty intriguing. I feel Danielle Harris gives a much better performance in here than in Halloween 4. I don't know, there's something about it still that doesn't quite bring it up to snuff with the rest of the series, but it is a film that I actually enjoyed a lot more. It's just, again, it's taking the franchise into a sort of different direction. It does sort of harm the film and its placement when you consider that, they were just kind of writing it as they went along. But there's just something about it it's that foreign charm, I think. Halloween 5, starting to look better over the years. Coming in at number 9, this one might surprise you with sort of how I put the timelines, but it's going to be the original Halloween 2. And looking at it as a standalone film, it's just okay. I mean, I like the whole continuation of The Night He Came Home. As a double feature, this is definitely in that top 3 category, but looking at it as its own isolated thing, it just doesn't hold up as well, I think, on its own. It has some great moments. Of course, some of the characters and the kills are definitely some standouts in this one. But on its own, it just feels like it's at that point where Halloween is sort of taking inspiration from the films that it inspired. And I don't know, just the whole, that Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister. It doesn't peeve me as much as it did a couple years back, like with the dust settled from the Blumhouse experiment. It's like, okay, whatever, it's there. It's just something that's there. But for the way it dictated the way the rest of the films went is also kind of where I'm looking at it like, you did this. So, I don't know. Halloween 2, it's nothing special on its own. Coming in at number 8, get your pitchforks ready, guys. Get all the harvest equipment that you need to terrorize a man with a controversial opinion. We're looking at Halloween 4. This is another one that's just okay. It's definitely a safe entry in the franchise. It has that original Halloween vibe where they're kind of sticking with the basics, and I'm sure the writer's strike definitely had something to do with that. It certainly impacted Alan B. McElroy and his ability to actually probably come up with a more creative idea for the story. But I think with it still being a pretty safe entry did help it out. It kind of brought Myers back to that, okay, this is an icon from the previous decade and the early part of this one. But it just kind of, it falls short of standing out to me as something completely unique. Again, sort of my experience with this one, not having seen it as young as a lot of other people had, definitely impacts my feeling on this one. But again, it's one that I feel is just okay at best, and just memorable barely at worst. But Halloween 4, I do enjoy this film. It's just stock and safe. That's really all I can say on it. And speaking of safe option and stock film, we're going to be looking at number 7, Halloween 2018. This is another one that, like Halloween 4, is sort of the safe option. We're going to do, okay, Michael is coming home and he's going to do what we all know him to be. He's the guy who stalks babysitters and the like on Halloween. This one I remember, again, when it came out, I was excited to see the brother-sister angle removed. It didn't really impact it at the end of the day. It just kind of made it a little more... it kind of gave more intrigue as to why Michael's coming back for Laurie. And when we see why, I thought that was actually pretty cool. If they let it develop over 2 films, it probably could have been executed a lot cooler. But that aside, Halloween 2018 is a film that I thought was definitely a return to form. It was definitely the first time in my lifetime that going off of the Halloween 78 timeline, it felt like, hey, Halloween is back on track. And being able to experience that, there's something about that I'll never forget. And I apologize that this one is low for those of you guys who love this one. Remember, I love them all going forward at this point. But it just kind of falls short of expectations after 5 years. But it's one that I think is definitely revisitable. Coming in at number 6, we have one that is probably going to piss some people off for being above a few of the previous mentioned films. That's going to be Halloween Kills. This film is fun. It is visually probably one of the most exciting films in the franchise. We have kills galore left and right, as the film title would suggest. Sure, the plot is a little convoluted, the writing wasn't the greatest, but I still think that the way the characters are handled in this film, for the most part, is pretty okay. It's just a fun Halloween film. It's definitely a memorable one. Again, I know it's divisive as hell, but that's kind of the whole thing. It's fun to have a Halloween movie that sort of goes away from what we're wanting. Sure, it might piss some of us off at points, but when the Halloween films want to take a left turn and do something a little different, I'm going to be one of the first in lines to appreciate and soak that in. And this one, I think, did that pretty well. That's really the easiest way to kind of talk about Halloween Kills there. It's, again, certainly the action-oriented Halloween film, but it's a lot of fun, and I think we could all agree that it is fun. Even if you guys don't like the writing or anything else about it. And it's just a fun entry. Coming in at number 5, this is a heartbreaker for me, because I thought this film was still going to somehow find a way to swim to the top. That's going to be Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. My first Halloween film, my first horror movie that I ever watched, is still in the top 5, but it is not quite at that level where it had been in previous years. I still enjoy this one with every fiber of my being. Again, the rose-tinted nostalgia probably has a great deal to do with that. The brutality of Myers throughout the film, sort of going into that weird direction. You guys kind of notice the theme with this top half of the entries. When they start to veer off and do something a little different, and I don't know, there's just something about the damn cult that I always thought was cool, and it had me intrigued for the few years there between watching Halloween 6 as a kid and then being able to revisit it as a teenager. Like, in those years, it was like, probably a 5-6 year gap maybe, where I'm like, what the fuck even was that movie about? Like, I loved it, and I remembered a great deal of, like, the carnage on screen, but I remembered there was something about it that I just never understood, and sort of watching Halloween 5 helped to explain it a little bit, barely. But this is just one of those ones. It's got some of the best atmosphere in the damn series. Some of the coolest kills. The first time we saw a truly brutal Michael Myers on screen. Halloween 6, I have again, my outlook for this film is polluted by nostalgia. Let me know how you guys feel about this one down below. I'm curious your thoughts there. And the producer's cut, the only thing they did that really bugs me is the Uncle Daddy thing. That was a little too much there. It's like, I'll take white horses every day over the week over Uncle Daddy. Coming in at number 4, this is another one I thought might have been a little bit higher, but really looking at the films, it didn't quite go where I thought it would be, but it's definitely higher than I had it last year. That's going to be Halloween Ends, guys. Yeah, Halloween Ends is in my top 5. Halloween Ends is above 2018, it's above the original Halloween 2, and it's above Halloween 4. It's above Halloween 6, for crying out loud. Halloween Ends, I feel, is one of the most heartfelt of the franchise. Again, I know this is one of the super divisive films, but talking about left turns, This film is like one of the biggest left turns in the franchise. And something about injecting a little bit of a love story into the film, I thought made for a pretty cool little subversion of expectations. To see Michael in sort of a weak and diminished state, it kind of made me feel a little uncertain at first. But understanding that this film is about change and accepting change, it sort of makes this one a lot more palatable, and that's really just what it is. You gotta be able to embrace the change to really accept this film and appreciate it. And I do just that. I fucking love Halloween Ends. I love it. I don't know what else to say. Halloween Ends was fucking great and still is. Maybe time will help this one out. It did it for Halloween 3. Coming in number 3, taking home the bronze medal, is going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I've said it already, guys. Left turns. Go do something weird. Go do something crazy. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is great in the way that it sort of explores the post-traumatic stress of the original Halloween, or more so the original story. This is something that I feel we didn't really get in any of the other Halloween films that follow Laurie Strode after the 1978 attacks. But here, following the 2007 attacks, we see Laurie very, very early after the events. Not 10, not 15, not 20 years later, not 40 years later, but a year or two, depending on which cut of the film you watch, years later. Dealing with this trauma of the boogeyman coming for her, trying to kill her, or so she thought. He wasn't really trying to kill her here. Maybe after she poked him, but to see her dealing with the stress and trauma of that, I thought was pretty cool. It was something, again, we didn't get it before, so to see her still in the midst of that was real fun. And to get that revelation from her perspective of that connection, it was something that really helped this film out. And it's got brutality. If you guys love a brutal Myers, that is in here. You have the realistic idea of a drifter Myers. I will die on that hill. And I know I have a few friends on that hill with me, so at least we could appreciate Halloween 2 up there. It's so damn unique. It's so different. It's one of those things. It's like if you took Rob Zombie's first Halloween and you took like 3 hits of acid and you had House of a Thousand Corpses playing in the other room, and somehow those two ideas sort of melted together in your induced psychosis there. That's sort of what Halloween 2 is, I feel. It's a great film. It's a great character study. It's a fucking psychological thriller before a slasher. It's just fucking amazing. Nobody or nothing can change my mind on that. We're down to the last 2, guys. What's it going to be? I've been talking throughout this whole ranking of the franchise taking a wide left turn. What's going to come on top? Is it going to be the gold standard? Or is it going to be the first deviation from the norm? Let's see. In 3, 2, 1. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Halloween 3, guys. As much as I love these hard left turns, they're not going to come out on top of the original. But Halloween 3, for being the first left turn, is going to be getting this spot. For having Tom Atkins as the ultimate male versus the ultimate trickster makes this film great. I talked about how over the years before I saw this film, people were telling me to avoid it like the fucking plague. And when I did finally get around to watching it, it was one of the most, what the hell did I just watch? I need to watch this again type of films. For just how unique this one is, it more than earns the spot, guys. And to say that it's unique, that might piss some people off because they'll be like, no, it's like Body Snatchers. Sure. But as a Halloween film, for trying to start an anthology direction, what else is there to say about what good this film does? Halloween 3, I love everything you have going on. It's just one of the funnest films. I've said before, if I'm in the mood to watch a Halloween film, but I don't know which one to watch, Halloween 3 is just going to win by default because it's so fucking different from, well, I'm going to watch Michael with the Knife, or, oh, the one with the androids and the Irish fucking madman. Let's watch that. This one, it's one of the funnest times I could have. Like I said, I could watch this one any time of year, multiple times a year. I mean, fuck, I could do that with half of this series anyway. But Halloween 3, guys, everything works in it. The characters, the acting, the kills that we do get in here, the fucking music. It's just great. Nothing will change my mind. And for all we know, it might one day come out on top. No promises, but it could happen. If this movie could happen, so can it coming out on top. But naturally, guys, coming out in the first place is going to be the immortal classic, John Carpenter's Halloween. We're not even going to call it Halloween 78 because at the end of the day, there is only one. And it is this one. John Carpenter's Halloween. What is there to say about this one that has not been said? I don't want to dwell on why this is going to be number one because you guys know. There's really no explanation for why it is. It's almost like it's a law. I know I was saying that Halloween 3 could one day overcome this, but we'll have to see what happens. But Halloween is one of the films that just, it can't be touched. No matter how much I enjoy sequel more, or I may feel like, well, I might want to watch this one more than the immortal classic. This one is the reason why we have the 12 other films that were previously mentioned. Without this one, what would we have? Would we have slashers without Halloween? Possibly, but would they have been anywhere near as entertaining without Halloween? That's not for me to say. That's a discussion to be had down below. But Halloween 1978, John Carpenter's fucking film. I called it Halloween 78. Damn it! But that's the one that comes out on top. And why wouldn't it? So that was my 3 ranking of the Halloween series, guys. What I'm going to do real quick before we get out of here is put on screen the 2022 ranking and this year's ranking. Going to have those side by side, and so you guys can see the minor changes that might have occurred throughout the year. Let me know down below, guys, how you would rank the Halloween films. Are there some placements of mine that got you wanting to start a fire at my front door? Please don't do that, because that's not cool. Let's discuss our placements and maybe why they are where they are. All that said, happy Halloween, guys. Thank you for coming out for these 31 days of October. Play with the icons down there. Hit that little bell so you don't miss out on any of the future content. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.